Welcome to this video on the Miranda Doctrine, a landmark rule from the Supreme Court that redefined the rights of the accused and continues to evolve today. The foundation of this doctrine lies in two constitutional amendments. The Fifth Amendment grants the right to be free from compulsory self-incrimination. The Sixth Amendment guarantees the right to counsel in criminal prosecutions. The principle of selective incorporation applied these federal rights to state cases. Two precedent-setting cases paved the way for Miranda. In 1963, Gideon v. Wainwright ensured the right to counsel in state felony cases. In 1964, Escobedo v. Illinois established the right to consult a lawyer while in police custody, if requested. The case involved Ernesto Miranda, arrested in 1963 for kidnapping and rape. During interrogation, police did not inform him of his rights. He confessed in writing, but the conviction was based on a confession made without being informed of his Fifth and Sixth Amendment rights. The case escalated from the Superior Court of Maricopa County to the Arizona Supreme Court. The ultimate question before the U.S. Supreme Court was whether a suspect in police custody must receive warnings about their rights before questioning. In a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court ruled that statements made by a suspect in custody cannot be used by the prosecution unless they were first informed of their constitutional rights. These rights include the right to remain silent, the warning that anything said can be used in court, the right to an attorney, and the provision of a free attorney if the suspect cannot afford one. The Miranda warnings apply when a suspect is in custody. A suspect can waive these rights, but the waiver must be made voluntarily, knowingly, and intelligently. If a suspect asks for a lawyer, questioning must stop. The dissent argued that the ruling lacked legal precedent and was too strict. Since 1966, the Miranda rule has been interpreted and limited through numerous subsequent Supreme Court cases, exploring its boundaries and complex, real-world applications. Harris v. New York, 1971, ruled that unwarned statements, while inadmissible in the prosecution's main case, can be used to challenge a defendant's credibility if they testify differently. New York v. Quarles, 1984, established a public safety exception, allowing delayed warnings when there is an immediate threat to public safety. Oregon v. Elstad, 1985, decided that an initial unwarned statement does not automatically taint a later, properly warned confession. Illinois v. Perkins, 1990, ruled that Miranda warnings are not required when a suspect speaks to an undercover police officer, as it is not a police-dominated atmosphere. Michigan v. Tucker, 1974, allowed derivative evidence, a witness discovered through a flawed interrogation, to testify, distinguishing a Miranda violation from a direct Fifth Amendment violation. Burghuis v. Tompkins, 2010, ruled that silence alone is not enough. A defendant must unambiguously invoke their right to remain silent. The core principle of Miranda remains. Suspects must be warned of their rights before custodial interrogation. However, the rule has key clarifications, including the public safety exception, use for impeachment, and the requirement for unambiguous invocation of rights. Ernesto Miranda's confession was thrown out, but he was convicted again without it. He died in 1976. Today, supporters view Miranda as a crucial safeguard against police coercion, while critics argue it hinders police work. The doctrine remains a dynamic conversation about state power and individual liberty. Before Miranda, police were not required to inform suspects of their rights, often leading to coerced confessions. The Supreme Court ruled that the Fifth Amendment required suspects to be clearly informed of their rights during custodial interrogation. How did Miranda v. Arizona in 1966 change the balance of power between police and suspects? Many law enforcement officials and politicians argued that the ruling would weaken crime fighting. Critics feared it would allow criminals to avoid prosecution, while supporters saw it as a vital civil liberties safeguard. Why were the Miranda rights considered controversial when they were first introduced? The familiar phrase, "You have the right to remain silent," comes directly from the case. Today, the ruling shapes police procedure nationwide and influences whether confessions are admissible in court. How are Miranda rights still used in policing and criminal justice today? Since 1966, the court has allowed exceptions, such as public safety concerns, reflecting an ongoing tension between individual rights and public security as constitutional rights evolve over time. In what ways have later Supreme Court cases modified or limited Miranda versus Arizona? In modern discussions about police accountability and wrongful convictions, Miranda remains a cornerstone of due process and equal protection under the law, especially for vulnerable populations. Why does Miranda versus Arizona still matter in today's debates over police reform and civil rights?